seems to be indisposed and he'll be here momentarily. In the meanwhile, I'd like to welcome the Minister and I'd ask the Minister to introduce the people who are accompanying her. And with that, Minister, you have 10 minutes for your opening remarks. Thank you.
I'm just wondering if we can clarify before that whether the Minister is going to stay with us for a full hour?
Yes, she's staying with us for a full hour.
Okay,
right,
thank
Minister?
you.
Yes.
You have me for an hour, yeah.
Yes.
I move things around, it's all good. Okay, thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a privilege to be here with you today. Of course, it's my first meeting with your committee in my new capacity. I'm joined today by Deputy Minister Marie Lemay and Associate Deputy Minister Les Linklater from Public Services and Procurement Canada, as well as Ron Parker, President of Shared Services Canada, and they each have a couple of officials with them. Both organizations provide services that are critical to federal government operations and in providing programs and services to Canadians. Today I'll update members on key priorities in the Supplementary Estimates B, but first I want to talk about our number one priority, which is of course to stabilize the Phoenix pay system. Madam Chair, there's no higher priority for our government than providing public servants with reliable and accurate pay. More than half of public servants are facing some form of pay issue, and I'm truly sorry for the hardship this situation is causing them and their families. We're doing everything it takes to resolve this completely unacceptable situation. Last week, the Auditor General tabled his first report on Phoenix, which confirmed the findings of earlier reviews such as Goss Gilroy. Our government accepts all of his recommendations and has already taken steps to fully act on them. In my opinion, the decision by the previous government to treat pay modernization as a cost-cutting measure instead of a complex enterprise-wide business transformation exposed this project to significant risk. They spent $309 million to create an unproven and flawed pay system and prematurely booked $70 million per year in savings. The design and implementation was rushed and staff were not trained. In fact, 700 specialized compensation staff were terminated before Phoenix was launched. Many were given notice as early as April of 2014. When Phoenix was launched, the existing pay system slated for decommissioning was in poor shape and at high risk of failure. Senior officials advised that Phoenix was ready to go. Frankly, there were no other options on the table. This all being said, and while we didn't create this problem, it's ours to fix. Once launched, Phoenix's problems ran so deep that it took time to understand what was wrong and identify solutions to stabilize the system. These serious issues continue to present challenges today. As the Auditor General notes, there is no quick fix, but we're going to do whatever is necessary to ensure that public servants are paid accurately and on time. To get this right, we will require time and additional investments. Nous mettons en œuvre une série de mesures.
We are implementing a series of measures focused on bringing the pay system to a point of stability. These measures, developed with employees, departments, agencies, and unions, build on previous actions. They aim squarely at reducing the backlog of late transactions and wait times for missing pay. Going forward, our efforts to stabilize the pay system fall into four broad areas, namely governance and informed decisions, improved processes and technology, increased capacity and service, and partnership and engagement. Robust governance is key to making accountable and informed decisions. The working group of ministers created by the Prime Minister in April is ensuring that we take a whole-of-government approach.
Officials from PSPC and Treasury Board Secretariat is leading our overall efforts to stabilize the system. Their work is supported by a Deputy Minister's Oversight Committee and interdepartmental working groups. To improve processes and technology, we are addressing the root cause of human resources to pay system problems, including the inconsistency between Phoenix and the patchwork of 32 HR systems in place across government. Many current pay delays are the result of common HR practices and processes that don't work with Phoenix. Solving these issues means looking at how pay requests are generated in departments, the HR processes to enter, approve, and send transactions to Phoenix. Our solution is integrated from initial staffing action to pay request to pay receipt. A holistic approach ensures our pay system works effectively and efficiently from start to finish. To increase capacity and improve service, the Government of Canada announced in May an investment of $142 million to hire more compensation staff. Since then, 380 employees have been hired, bringing the total number of compensation staff added since go live to 680, in effect more than doubling the staff complement we had when Phoenix was launched. And we plan to add up to 300 more over the next several months. Enfin, nous renforçons les partenariats et la mobilisation.
Finally, we are strengthening partnerships and engagement. A Union Management Committee on Phoenix meets regularly to discuss issues and solutions. Also, we are providing and will improve reporting and data analysis to departments and agencies that will better inform decision-making. While our immediate priority is to stabilize the pay system, we are also exploring longer-term options to ensure that we have a system that is sustainable, reliable, and efficient. Now, I would like to turn to other key priorities, beginning with the review of Canada Post Corporation. This committee's report provided important guidance to the government. We heard you loud and clear on the need to balance the delivery of an important public service with business sustainability. Canadians can expect an announcement on the future of Canada Post Corporation in the not-too-distant future.
Canada, our government has already taken concrete action to ensure it has the resources needed to deliver enterprise-wide IT infrastructure that is modern, secure, and reliable. For initiatives that are now underway, $359 million in new funding was provided in the 2017 Fall Economic Update. Another $106 million will support ongoing projects to better defend government networks from cyber threats, malicious software, and unauthorized access. This funding addresses key points contained in an independent external review, which concluded that a centralized shared service delivery model for IT infrastructure is the correct approach, but which also found that Shared Services Canada has an operational funding gap. La modernisation de l'approvisionnement fédéral.
Modernizing federal procurement is another key priority. Procurement needs to be simpler, to be faster, and better focused on results. Work is well underway to bring federal procurement firmly into the 21st century. For instance, we are streamlining requests for proposals to make it easier to bid on government contracts, and we are considering how we can pay our suppliers faster. We are working forward towards a new e-procurement solution.
Canadians, we now allow bidders a second opportunity to comply with some mandatory requirements before making final assessments and contract awards. Beyond making a purchase at the lowest price, we want to leverage procurement to effect positive change, grow our economy, and build a better country for all Canadians. The procurement strategy for Aboriginal business, for example, is designed to foster Aboriginal business development and participation in federal government contracting. I am pleased that this committee is now examining this strategy. Our procurements must also be accountable, ethical, and transparent. Yesterday, I announced that we will develop guidelines with respect to the ethical procurement of apparel. Canadians want to be assured that the clothing worn by public servants in uniform is made from ethically sourced materials. Turning now to the National Shipbuilding Strategy, which is rejuvenating our marine industry, supporting Canadian innovation, and bringing jobs and prosperity to many communities across Canada. In Vancouver, Seaspan Shipyards has completed the first of 3 offshore fisheries science vessels. This is a significant milestone for our shipbuilding industry. In Halifax, the construction of the first 2 Arctic and offshore patrol ships is well underway, with the first ship over 60% completed. Delivery of this ship is scheduled for 2018. We're also moving forward with the largest project, the Canadian Surface Combatant, which will form the backbone of the Royal Canadian Navy. Bid solicitation closes in 2 days, and the bids will be evaluated jointly by the Government of Canada and Irving Shipbuilding. This process is expected to be completed next spring, when a preferred bidder will be selected. A few words now on the Supplementary Estimates B for 2017-2018. Shared Service Canada is seeking $23.5 million in additional funding. This involves transfers of $8.8 million from other departments, including Public Services and Procurement Canada, to support projects, as well as the reprofiling of $13.5 million from 2016-17 initiatives such as the renewal of high-performance computing storage and services for Environment and Climate Change Canada. I recently helped unveil this new supercomputer at the Canadian Meteorological Centre in Dorval, which will produce information that will benefit families, industries, and anyone who relies on accurate weather forecasts in their day-to-day lives. Madam Chair, Mr. Chair, I want to thank the employees of Shared Services Canada and Public Service and Procurement Canada for their commitment to excellence in all that they do. I especially acknowledge the employees at the Pay Centre and our satellite offices, as well as those compensation staff in departments and agencies not serviced by Miramichi, for their tireless efforts to ensure their colleagues are paid on time and accurately. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Minister, and to all of our my colleagues, and particularly our witnesses, my most abject apologies for being a little tardy. Madame Shanahan and I were on the same bus going over to 425 Wellington when we both discovered we were going to the wrong building.
Oh, no.
Madam Minister, thank you for also, my understanding is also agreeing to be with us for the full hour. I know originally we had scheduled you from 11 a.m. to 1 or 12 noon. So thank you for your indulgence to be with us for the full hour to allow our committee members to ask questions. Mr. Parker, Madame Lemay, good to see you both again. We'll start immediately with questions. We'll go to a 7-minute round, starting with Madame Ratanzi.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you for being here. I'm hoping that you're settling well into your new assigned role. As you know, we have been seized with Phoenix because we believe that nobody should be left without pay, and I'm sure you all agree with it. And the Auditor General's report, we note that 1,200 pay advisor positions were eliminated in 2014, and this elimination of institutional memory has caused some of the challenges that you talked about, and that the savings that were recorded were premature of $70 million, so it was ill thought through. And that the complexity of what Phoenix was supposed to do was not realized by the previous government. The merging of 46 departments and then another 101 departments. And we understand that there is no plan B, that Phoenix there's no alternative to Phoenix, and so the government will not scrap it. So going forward, and to ensure that we do have some sustainable solutions, what are some of the steps that you're taking, Minister, to ensure that moving forward we have certain structural changes? And perhaps I see that Mr. Les Linkletter is here, who is perhaps the Phoenix expert. But if you could help us understand what's going on, it would be appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. A lot of detail in there, but I'll focus on the actions moving forward. So we have put our measures into what I would call 4 buckets, or 4 bigger areas of focus moving forward as we head towards stabilization and ultimately a fully functional pay system, an integrated HR to pay system. And I pause to say how important it is to understand that this isn't just about a piece of software. This is an end-to-end user experience where the way people input the data into HR systems, the way the HR system then connects and interacts with the pay system, the way the pay system then generates pay, it's all connected. So, we talk about Phoenix, but what we're really talking about is a massive end-to-end HR to pay experience. So, when I use the term Phoenix, I'm going to be using it in that broad context, not simply as the PeopleSoft software that is the kind of IT piece of this. So anyway, the 4 areas that we are focusing on, first of all, are governance and oversight. So again, putting some rigor and thought around how we are ensuring accountability and oversight, starting with the Minister's Work Group, then the integrated team led by Les, which is also a partnership with Treasury Board, the Deputy Minister's Working Group. And as we move forward, we're going to build and maintain those governance structures. We're going to build, we have a project management office. We are looking at performance measurement and reporting framework and developing performance metrics. So there are metrics that we track already and have for some time, but what other metrics can tell us that we're steering this, that there's continuous improvement and that we're steering this in the right direction? And we're looking to establish an expert advisory panel, which is well underway. In terms of the next thing, of course, is business processes and how are we going to improve our business processes. So we're looking at adjusting the pay center delivery model and implementing the concept, which Les could elaborate on. I won't for time, but called pod pilots, where we really focus on putting the same group of people attacking the same type of transaction over a long period of time. We're conducting and assessing a root cause analysis to implement short-term priority fixes. So understanding significantly what the root cause of these technological and business process challenges, but also what can we do now as short-term fixes, which quite frankly could be workarounds or could make us a system more clunky, but in the meantime, what short-term fixes can we put in place? And we're doing the HR to pay assessment. We're looking at policies and what policies do we have to change. Is it how we manage acting pay that causes a challenge when that acting pay request is put into the HR system that's then flipped to Phoenix? So all these different processes have to be looked at under the lens of the end-to-end user experience. And of course, we're looking to the technological changes and challenges and fixes, if you will, that will have to be put in place. Capacity is the third big bucket, so increasing the capacity, which primarily refers to the human resource capacity. So as you said, and I said in my speech, we've already hired 380 people, we're putting in place 300 more, trying to augment the human resource capacity to actually run these systems. We've created a client contact center, which is to really help public servants get the support they need to navigate this system. We are realigning the IBM contract to add some capacity
Minister,
there.
I have probably got 1 minute left.
Yep. Okay.
So I'm just going to ask you one last question. In all these governance structures that you have implemented, what are some of the challenges that you are encountering? Because we heard about the minister's working group, the DM's working group, and Madame Lemay has been here about 6 times already, and we have heard about moving forward, and the underlying problem hasn't been solved. If you could give us some analysis of what's being done there and what are the challenges you face.
Yeah, I think I'd say the big challenge, the overarching challenge is understanding the whole of government approach to get this steering in the right direction. So this is not just the responsibility of PSPC and Treasury Board, although the leadership and accountability definitely lies there. But this is a whole of government approach, because this isn't just the pay center in Miramichi, it's the satellite offices, it's the other departments that have HR and pay in place. We have to look pan-governmentally at all the challenges, the systemic challenge, whether it be policy or process or technology or training, and that all has to come together. And that's what I think we now have, is a pan-governmental view on where we need to go and how to get there.
Mr. Macaulay.
Thank you. Welcome, Minister. It's nice to have you with us. First of all, I just want to express my disappointment. We had reached out to the other side, both ourselves and NDP, making it clear we wanted to make this a nonpartisan meeting to work toward agreements. And we're just disappointed that you would start right off with your talking points attacking previous government, placing blame that your predecessor was so good at. But we just want to get on. The PBO has stated as of June, we still don't have, or as of June, you didn't have a comprehensive plan for Phoenix. When will we actually see a published comprehensive plan?
Well, as I said, I think that, it's hard to hear. I'm very confident that the measures that we have in place, is it published? Is it online? Yes, so the measures that I just talked three-quarters myself the way through are published online, and this is a working, breathing assessment of the steps we are taking moving forward. And as we readjust and reset course, and I do apologize for the beginning. My comments were only meant to explain my assessment of the reasons why we got here.
I think if you had read all the 15 other meetings and the PBO or the AG report, I think you would have gone a different direction. The PBO or the AG report states you've engaged an external consultant about a working plan. Is that the one that you've said that you've published online?
I think yeah, sorry, I just wanted to take clarification. It is Pricewaterhouse. So we have engaged Pricewaterhouse, and we have a plan from which we've built our own set of measures and comprehensive approach to this, so yes.
Whose decision was to re-engage PricewaterhouseCoopers? I understand through looking at this, they're a big part of the problem from the beginning. Am I incorrect with that?
I can answer that in June June or July, right after launch. I had a conversation with them as to is there any way that they could look at the processes and come up with some of the suggestion as we were focusing on addressing pay issues. So we have re-engaged them towards the end of the fall to look at this comprehensive approach.
Okay, thanks. Minister, the Auditor General has commented that the HR to pay integration makes things more complex for Phoenix, and of course the complexity of the system we've heard from day one is a big part of the problem. Is this going to make it worse? And do you agree with the Auditor General's comments?
I agree that this is a very complex system, and I would have liked to have seen a system.
I
would have liked to have seen a system design that took the HR component of this into account. I think the Auditor General is absolutely correct that this makes it complex, but that's the reality that we're living in. People don't enter the data right now into Phoenix. They enter it into an HR system, which then interacts with Phoenix, which then generates pay. So it's really important that we see that this can only be fixed if we don't have HR systems that properly connect with the pay system. No matter how great the pay system it is, it's going to be clunky on the HR side.
Do you agree with the AG?
Say that again, sorry?
Do you agree with the AG on this?
I agree that this is a very complex system, yes.
That's fine. Great. I want to just switch over to issues that we're all having at our constituency offices. We heard earlier our chair from Public Accounts stated even though he's in a rural office with very little government workers, Phoenix is now the #1 thing that they're hearing. We're hearing a lot in Edmonton West. We used to have a system set up where we could actually, constituent workers, office workers could call in and they'd have a designated person to help them. What we're finding now is that designated person is just saying, too bad we can't help anymore. Can you commit that you will set up for the MPs this system again so we can actually help these worst cases that are coming to our offices who are having such a hard time fighting through the call center waits, et cetera?
We made a conscious choice working with the unions to focus on a certain type of transaction. So the priority transactions at first were disability and maternity or parental claims.
Right.
And it was a conscious choice not to have MP offices take priority over those kinds of cases. The important piece I think that you're referring to is the lines of communications aren't clear, and we can definitely work on those.
Let me interrupt you. From what I've seen from reports from Madame LeMay, you've reached 90%. You've reached your goal for the maternity leave and this and that.
Yep.
Why are we still at a point where my constituent office calls about people who haven't been paid, overpaid, getting harassed? We're still getting the same response. Too bad, check again in 2 or 3 months. If we've reached this steady state on those issues, can we not get back to having MPs being able to help
I do think it's
constituents?
unacceptable that you're not getting a response quicker than that, and I can definitely look into it. I can't at this time commit to what the solution to that would be. Unless, can you provide any further insight into why someone wouldn't be getting?
Because again, this is for all of us MPs. It's not a conservative issue. It's
No,
a
I
liberal
appreciate
issue.
the nature of your question.
We can definitely reset the lines that we used to have to get the MP contact to
when can we hear back from you when that's going to happen, please?
Sorry. Do that quickly. It would be, we could set a link with your office to the hardship.
Yeah, I mean, definitely hardship cases are brought forth to my office all the time from MPs, and there is a structure in place to get those.
When can we get to hearing back from you that we can reset this up so the MPs have a way to...
Very quickly, within a couple of weeks, for sure. Sorry, I misunderstood your question.
Oh, fantastic. No, that's good news. Now, we've heard a lot from... How much time, sir? No. I'm running out of time. I'm going to pass on to the others. I'm going to switch off to Phoenix, seeing as I've got you here, though. Whose decision was it to spend $550,000 to put that wrap on that government building a couple blocks from here? The Canada Post building.
Yeah, I know what you're referring to. That
it seems like an enormous
recently.
Waste of money to wrap a government building in $550,000.
It was ours and
when you say ours, who specifically?
PSPC and Heritage, because there was a component
who specifically,
of the 150.
though?
My understanding is that the rationale behind that has to do with the dilapidated state of a lot of the buildings and trying to make the building, as it's under repair, not be an eyesore as a backdrop for visitors to the Ottawa Basin.
Do you agree that's a good use of taxpayers' money, or can we commit to not having that repeated?
Well, I don't think I can certainly commit to looking into it. I don't know that was, but right now that was a pilot, and we're looking into whether we would do something again. And so I would commit to say that there may be a better use of money.
Okay. Thanks for your time, and again, thanks for your commitment to getting the lines open again for the MPs. It is extremely important to our constituents.
Thank you. Mr. Weir, you have 7 minutes.
Thank you very much. Madam Minister, you said, and I quote, Canadians can expect an announcement on the future of Canada Post Corporation in the not too distant future, end quote. As I'm sure you're aware, our committee pulled out all the stops to present our report on the future of Canada Post in December of last year because the government said it wanted to respond in the spring of this year. We're now approaching the end of the year, so I'm wondering if you can commit that the government will respond to our report on Canada Post before Parliament adjourns for Christmas.
I can make that commitment, yes.
Okay, so the not too distant future means
really
like the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Before Christmas.
Okay, well, thanks very much for clarifying that. Regarding the Phoenix working group, you said, and again I quote, the working group of ministers created by the Prime Minister in April is ensuring that we make a whole of government approach, end quote. Now, you also talked about a pan-government approach. I'm wondering what that means and what is the working group actually doing?
Well, what the working group provides, in my opinion, is a very targeted, calculated reminder every week we meet to every minister around that table and as a result every minister at cabinet that this is the responsibility of every minister to make sure that their people are paid on time. And so we ask deputies for updates on what they're doing in their departments, what kind of resources they could be committing to this. Ministers are expected to know numbers, in terms of what their department is looking at, whether their numbers are headed in the right direction, if they're not, why. So it does add a level of accountability and awareness that is significant, I would say.
Okay, and do you feel that all the ministers on that working group are responsible for Phoenix, or do you take personal responsibility for the file?
Oh, 100%, it's on me. My work and my mandate letter clearly states that this is my number one priority, and I feel lucky to have the colleagues that I have around the table who are assisting in that regard, led by Minister Goodell. But the oversight provided by that committee ensures a whole of government piece, but is ultimately the buck stops at me to get this thing resolved.
Okay, thanks. And I'd like to reinforce something that Mr. McCauley said about the frustration that we have as MPs in not having tools to help constituents with Phoenix problems. If someone comes into our offices and needs help with employment insurance or immigration, there are hotlines that we or our staff can call to get answers. There's nothing like that in place for Phoenix. In an adjournment debate with the parliamentary secretary back in March, I suggested establishing an MP hotline for Phoenix. So I just want to clarify when that's going to happen and that it's going to be comparable to the hotlines that we have for immigration and EI.
Yeah, and you and I had that conversation as well. I guess, to my mind, it's very cleverly and calculatingly using resources to the best. Every resource we pull off the backlog is not addressing the backlog, and so this idea has been discussed in my tenure a couple of times, and we need to methodically deal with the backlog using the priorities and the lenses we've created. So I completely agree that we need to have a stronger line of communication. In what form that will be, I'm not prepared to say, whether it will be an actual hotline, what kind of resources we'll dedicate. I have to look at options. I can commit, as I did, to within a couple of weeks making sure there's clear communication lines, but I can't tell you what that'll look like.
I guess the perspective I would offer is that we have 338 constituency offices across the country. that could be used as points of contact to help address the most problematic Phoenix cases. That's the logic the government's taken with immigration and EI. We don't hear the argument that, well, people shouldn't be able to jump the EI queue by going to their MP office. We say the role of MPs is to serve constituents and they need to have access to get answers. And I'm really not understanding why the same logic wouldn't apply to Phoenix.
I do find that particularly compelling, and I will look into it. I guess I'm just mindful of every resource we take off of one thing and being clear, but I definitely will commit to looking into that.
Okay. Can you give us a sense of how much the government is prepared to spend on fixing Phoenix?
Well, we have to spend wisely, and to date, depending on where you start the math, we could include the initial $309,000. But what our government has put in is the 143 this spring, $50 million last year on the satellite offices, and we've reinvested the $70 million that was booked in saving over 3 years. So already you're up at, say, $600 million, and more money will need to be spent. I'm not prepared to give you an exact number because as we face each of these challenges, the numbers will change. But at the end of the day, people need to be paid, and we are going to pay what it takes to get them paid. The more interesting conversation will be around investments in stabilizing the current system and investments in perhaps exploring alternatives.
Okay, so it sounds like between the original cost of Phoenix and the money that's been put into fixing it so far, we're pushing $1 billion. I appreciate you're not prepared to give a final number, but can you tell us at what point and on what basis your government will update us on the ongoing tally for Phoenix?
Absolutely. So what I've just given you is the math to date. So 309 plus 143 plus 50 plus 3 times 210. And as we make further investments, we will immediately advise. We will make that public. Absolutely.
Okay. In the same vein, and one of the troubling findings from the Auditor General's report was that there were, quote, no comprehensive governance and oversight structures, end quote, in place to deal with Phoenix. How would you respond to that concern?
So in terms of governance, sorry, I was distracted by the water. I apologize.
Oh, no problem. I mean, the Auditor General said, and I'm quoting, there was no comprehensive governance and oversight structures set up. So
at the go live of Phoenix, I think that's a very fair assessment. I think that we've learned that we as a small G government, the government before or after needs a whole of government approach with governance mechanisms, that include ultimate accountability and oversight in one place.
7 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank all the witnesses for being here, and particularly Minister Qualtrough, for taking the time to be here in front of this committee. Minister, I'm going to take a different approach, and I don't think it's partisan to say that, and we can see this overall pattern developing with the Auditor General, and it's a fact that the previous government pre-booked $56 million for the ETI, for the Email Transformation Initiative. It's a fact that the previous government pre-booked $70 million in savings for the Phoenix pay system. And we can see this pattern developing, and it's as if the previous government thought that, they asked public servants, we want you to build a house, but all we're going to give you is a 2x4 and a hammer. It just doesn't make sense, and unfortunately, many of my constituents today are suffering from these decisions. And now that's the past, but I want to focus a bit of what's been done over the past 2 years and where we're going. But it is frustrating for them, and it's frustrating for me as a member of Parliament. And the advice, we know that the advice that your predecessor had from PSPC was that the Phoenix system was ready to go. And obviously, we all want to get to an objective where, people get paid on time. This is the objective that we've heard loud and clear. So what confidence do you have that your department has actioned the right plans now?
Well, I have every confidence that now we have in place both the governance structure and the list of measures needed to be taken in order to stabilize the Phoenix pay system. I have every confidence in that. I think that the people we have on this know exactly what needs to be done and have a methodical, well-planned action roadmap, I guess, for doing it. So I do have that confidence, and I think that time will tell if that confidence is well placed, but I'm very confident that we are headed in the right directions. We have to continuously improve this system. There's just no alternative.
And Minister, we know that the way the contract was designed, it was essentially a task-based contract. What could we have done for future reference with contracts and asking proponents, such as we know IBM was involved, but other proponents who would be bidding on potential future contracts? What could we have asked them to do in terms of designing, rather than saying, here's what we want you to do, rather than asking them to design a human resources and pay system? What other areas do you believe that we should have focused with regards to the Phoenix pay system? And we've heard previously, we opted for a train the trainee program rather than, making sure that employees got the proper training. Is there other areas that you think that we've missed steps in terms of miscalculating the implementation of Phoenix?
A couple of things in your question. So first of all, specifically with respect to the IBM contract, I think we need to, as we modernize procurement, really focus on outcomes and tell people what you want to achieve, and then let them propose how it needs to be done, instead of asking people to do a series of things that will hopefully end up where you want to go. So having an outcomes-based approach is a big lessons learned moving forward on any contract. Specifically with respect to Phoenix, again, I focus on the massive kind of business transformation piece of this and all the tools that could have been put in place to, manage the workforce, expose people to change management tools, and there was such a big culture shift that was required, and really, bringing people along in this culture shift, looking at the technical pieces, improving our policies. I mean, I could give you 5 examples of policies that should have been looked at before we even went down this road. The software that we bought isn't compatible with the business processes at the time, nor the policies we had in place. And so if you don't have all those 3 things aligned, you're going to end up with the mess we ended up with. So I just think a bigger picture, and hindsight's 20/20, but a bigger picture view on this would have been helpful.
That's great. And just one more question on Phoenix. The Auditor General stated that it took PSPC too long to acknowledge that the vastity of the issue and the severity of the issue. And I'm wondering, knowing what we know today, and to ensure that we don't repeat the same mistakes, what could we do differently?
Wow.
Loaded question.
That's a question. To be honest, I think we as a government, small g government again, whatever party, really needs to see these massive IT projects as the business transformations that they are. And I think we could have put in place the people, the tools, the policies, the processes that would have set ourselves up for success. I think with respect to PSPC, as this was rolled out, it did take a while to really understand the depth and complexity of this. In the meantime, as problems were being identified, we were doing our very best to solve them. But it did take some time to understand the massive kind of enterprise-wide nature of these problems.
Quickly, Minister, I want to ask you about prompt payment, and we're embarking on a small and medium-sized business procurement study as well. And I know that the issue of prompt payment was important for many SMEs which live in my constituent. And I know this was I've actually in my previous life worked on an issue like this, where the government would pay the prime, but the prime was a little slower to pay the subcontractor. So could you give us an update on prompt payment?
Yeah, I was really pleased to see that prompt payment made it into my mandate letter, because I think that shows our government's commitment to addressing this issue. While 96% of our invoices are paid from PSPC within 30 days, we can always do better, and we need to put in place the structures to make sure that our subs are paid properly and promptly, not just properly. I guess there's a lesson from Phoenix. We have to pay people accurately and on time, but we have to make sure that there are mechanisms put in place through the federal government to make sure that people are paid promptly.
Thank you. Merci.
Thank you very much. I'd like to welcome Mr. Clement and Mr. Diot to our committee. Thank you for being here. My understanding is that Mr. McCauley and Mr. Shipley have ceded their time. Mr. Clement, you'd be up first for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you. And Minister, it's Tony Clement, Parry Sound, Muskoka. Thank you for attending the committee. I wanted to turn to shipbuilding, if I might. You did reference it in your remarks. Now, construction on the joint support ships was supposed to begin by the end of the year. That was the original plan by the former government. But according to documents provided by Department of Fisheries and Oceans, the delivery schedule for both the supply ships and the icebreaker is currently unavailable. So I'd like to ask you in this forum, when do you expect construction to begin on the joint support ship project?
Thank you. And I'm going to ask Lisa Campbell, who's here, to give us the dates because she's much more well-versed in these details.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you for the question. I'm happy to report the construction of large ships for the Navy and the Canadian Coast Guard is underway at both Irving Shipbuilding's Halifax Shipyard and Seaspan's Vancouver Shipyard. Suffice to say that both the budgets and the schedules for the shipbuilding strategy were done many years ago before blocks of ships had actually been constructed in these yards, and we now have a much better idea of what a realistic schedule is, what challenges they'll encounter, and what efficiencies they're going to be able to achieve. We have received an integrated program schedule for Vancouver, so for their whole program of work, which we're currently analyzing to see whether we have any questions about it, whether it works for us, and what the schedule will be. As I believe the committee is aware, the government does have, the Royal Canadian Navy rather has an urgent requirement for interim capability to refuel its ships at sea. And in November 2015, Federal Fleet Services was awarded a contract for the provision of interim auxiliary oil replenishment capability for the Navy. The conversion of an existing vessel in Quebec remains on track. It's expected to begin service in January 2018 and will bridge the gap until the joint support ships are delivered.
Thank you. I just want to state for the record that we really didn't get a date there, and it is important for this committee and for parliamentarians to get dates as soon as possible so that we can do our job to hold you accountable. Speaking about the interim supply ships then, because you did mention that, that was as a result of action was taken by the previous government in the construction of the Astérix, a project that the government originally opposed for political reasons. Now we don't know about when the next supply ships will be built, or when the construction will begin. Based on the testimony of officials, it won't happen at least until 2021, 4 years later than originally planned. Numerous experts have said that we need to award another contract to the Davie Shipyard to get these supply ships in motion. Otherwise, our capabilities as a Navy are, quite frankly, going to be a joke. So will you award a second contract to Davie, and if not, why not?
Thank you. And Lisa, I'll ask you to pipe in a second, but my understanding is based on a substantive look at operational capability look by the Department of National Defense and the Coast Guard. They came to the conclusion that we did not need to either continue on with the existing lease of the existing ship, or in fact award a contract for the build of a second ship. Lisa, can you add to that?
Yes, happy. Thank you, Minister. Thank you for the question. So as I believe committee members are aware, 2 packages of work were competitively awarded to yards on the east and west coast, and other opportunities for the construction of smaller vessels under 1,000 tons can be competed across Canada and are, as well as ship repair and refit work. We recently completed a contract for in-service support of Arctic offshore patrol ships and joint supply ships. This summer, the contract was awarded for $5.2 billion, so it's an example of how competition spreads work around. We are committed to consulting with industry on other requirements that may arise following open and competitive procurement processes. So we regularly engage all Canadian yards as we look at the shipbuilding strategy's existing requirements and any new requirements.
Thank you. I'd like to again state for the record that we are now a Navy that has 1 interim supply ship and 3 oceans. It's not acceptable. Not acceptable, Mr. Chair. Turning to the surface combatants for a second, yesterday we learned that the department, from the department, that the completion date for the first warship to the Navy is, as you may have mentioned, highly speculative, maybe sometime next year. The deadline has been pushed back numerous times. The RFP has been amended more than 50 times already, and it's more likely than ever that delays will cause shipyard construction gaps and massive layoffs in the shipyards as a result. When will the RFP for the ships be final? And would you be willing to provide the committee in writing with the delivery schedule?
Thank you for the question. Yes, we were pleased to announce yesterday that the RFP closes November 30th, and it was extended sometimes at industry's request for a couple of reasons. One, we want to make sure that industry has a chance to put their best foot forward, and we take into account their feedback. It really is an example, as the Minister said, of procurement modernization. As well, we still anticipate the start of construction in the early 2020s. This is a streamlined procurement strategy for one warship design and the combat systems integrator that comes with it, which should achieve efficiencies from our perspective. With respect to production slowdowns, it is a common feature of modern shipbuilding, and a number of things will play into this. The contract that we have for Arctic Offshore Patrol ships on the East Coast has a guarantee for 5 ships with an incentive for 6th. When we know when the 6th will be built, that will tell us when the start of the gap happens. We do expect a production slowdown. We've hired a third party to help us analyze the start of that gap, the nature, its timing, and duration.
We'll have to stop your testimony there, Minister. I'm sorry. Or Madame Campbell, I'm sorry. Monsieur Ayoub, 5 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Chair. Madam Minister, thank you for being here today. I certainly sympathize with government employees who are going through this very difficult situation, and I congratulate you on the leadership that you have demonstrated. It's not easy to do. This is a role that we, working as a team, have to try to assume and seek to accomplish. There are rules, pay rules, that are extremely complicated. The pay system is very complicated. Some 80,000 rules that have to be consolidated to have a system that is a bit simpler. What is the plan? What is the time frame to be able to eventually reduce this volume of rules, some 80,000, to see that our employees working for Canada are paid? Thank you for your question. Of course, the 80,000 rules are related to the collective agreement.
Be clear, it is not PSPC that negotiates collective agreements with unions. It is, in fact, Treasury Board Secretary. So they would be the lead. But the idea that we can, in some way, simplify the rules associated or that result from the negotiation of collective agreements would indeed impact the complexity of the customization of Phoenix. So as Treasury Board embarks on their next wave, if you will, of collective agreement negotiation, they could be in a position, and certainly we've heard from at least one union that they're open to it, to at least have a discussion on how we can simplify these rules, thus the customization.
Merci pour la réponse. Donc,
thank you for your answer. So we see that clearly it's not simple. It's not just simple in the system. You have to work with it. And the fact that you are working with Phoenix, well, with Ms. LeMay and her team and Mr. Linklater, I'd like to know from these people what is the role of the new way of addressing the backlog, in good French. How can we look at it? Can we forecast what delays, future delays there will be, if any? We have to play catch-up, of course, in terms of the collective agreements, and also for the next tax period that is looming. So how can we look forward to what will happen, even working with this imperfect system? Thank you very much for your question, Chair. There are a variety of activities that we are looking at now. We have the working group, the management committee, and it is looking at the initiatives for addressing the problems faced by employees. As you said, Mr. Ayoub, we are now approaching tax season, and transactions are being dealt with for collective agreements and also for the issuance of T4s for employees. So, in addition to hiring more staff to join the team in Miramichi and the satellite offices throughout the country, we will continue working. We want to issue the T4s for this year, and with this capacity, we should be able to turn the queue around in terms of the future. As to our plans, then the action plan that has just been tabled, we see that there'll be most pressure between now and the end of 2018. Am I right in saying that over the last year there were some periods of time where you got your head above water and you were able to move forward to contain the catch-up that had to be accomplished? Am I right in thinking that? Do you see a light at the end of the tunnel anywhere here in terms of the clarifications that you have given us and the new rules that have been established, that have been changed as well? Can we look towards having something more concrete for progress? Yes, the Auditor General indicated that we were capable in a certain context of processing more than in the past, but even with the collective agreements, we are able to process more.
You have 5 minutes.
Madam Minister, getting back to Phoenix, you had said in your opening statements that when Phoenix was launched, the existing pay system slated for decommissioning was in poor shape and at high risk of failure. So we know that Phoenix right now is not paying half the civil servants correctly. What was the failure rate of the existing system?
Sorry, I don't have that information.
So a big part of the issue we have is that there was no benchmarking really in terms of what the issues were in different departments. So the sad thing is we will not know when we are where we were before, but we do know from OGGO report from that the system had actually failed on 2 occasions, I think, before. So that's what we have.
What is your definition of failure, though? Surely
it had not paid. It had not paid. I think it was 4,000 people right off. Okay. Remember that Phoenix has paid 300,000 public servants every 2 weeks since it's launched. Right. Granted, I'm not trying to diminish the issues at all, but the biweekly pay has been going out every 2 weeks.
Right, but it was failure. The failure rate was not impacting half of the civil servants, was it?
I don't believe so, but I don't have any numbers to be able to answer, really.
So you don't know what the failure rate was, per se?
We don't have that collective view. We did not have that collective view of thing, which was a real issue with the system. Now we do have, and we will eventually have a better view of things. We did not have a centralized view of things.
Okay. To the minister, so if we're talking about numbers and we seem to want them now, what kind of metrics do you have regarding the fix of Phoenix? Like right now, again, we have more than half public servants are getting incorrectly paid. So do you expect to reduce that by 50% in a year, 75% in 5 months? What kind of metrics do we have now?
I think it's important to clarify that half of public servants have a pay issue outstanding right now, which is slightly different than saying half of public servants aren't being correctly paid, because every 2 weeks people are being paid. The challenge is that we have to, again, prioritize how we're going to chip away at the backlog while at the same time maintaining the service standard of the 80,000. 80,000 new transactions come in every month. So we need to make sure that we're addressing those 80,000 transactions. Remember, 300,000 people get paid twice a month, 80,000 new transactions a month, ranging from people having questions on their union dues to people got married, they're changing their name, to people didn't get paid, people paid less CPP, they're wondering why. There's significant financial impact, there's insignificant and non-significant, such as a $20 discrepancy versus a $1,000 discrepancy. So for us, success, what we're looking at, what we're looking towards is a continuous improvement. So constantly addressing or getting at the backlog every month. And the more people we have and the more streamlined our processes are and the less glitches we have technologically, the more we can confidently say we are chipping away at the backlog.
And how does that chipping away look, though? Surely there are targets somewhere where you're saying, well, this week, like a salesperson or something, you have a target. So are there targets at all?
Right. Well, what we do know is that what we know, I shouldn't say do know, I don't like that, pardon me, is that every month the number of transactions we are processing is improving. So I'll take the last month. We had a service standard of 80,000, 79, I'm going to get this backwards, 79,000 new transactions came in. We addressed 71,000 of those, plus an additional 21 manual collective agreement transactions, plus 29 automated. So we handled 119,000 transactions that much on a service standard of 80. You know, at some point, we're not going to have the collective agreements to process, or quite frankly, the next batch of collective agreements will be easier to process because they won't involve 2 to 3, 4 years of backlogs. And we anticipate at that point a steady decline in the number of transactions in the backlog.
Okay, we're out of time, Mr. Diop. Mr. Peterson, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Minister, for being here. Thank you for everyone for joining us this afternoon. I just want to follow up a little bit on what Mr. Diop was asking. So I'm hearing now there's 300,000 employees that are being paid bi-weekly, for the most part successfully. There's 80,000 transactions coming in a month.
Yes.
Transactions can be anything from a name change, as you mentioned, to a change in address, perhaps, or anything. So these aren't necessarily problematic. That's just how many transactions are coming into the system. How many transactions can be actioned a month under the current HR and other resources that are available?
Thank you. Les, can you give the numbers?
In terms of the capacity within PSPC, our estimates are that we can comfortably handle about 80,000 new transactions every month. And so as the Minister says, tracking our progress against that, we've been reporting through our public dashboards for the last number of months the number of transactions beyond our service standard, and that number is what we are watching in part as we make progress on queue reduction.
Right. So that's netting out to zero, which is obviously proper budgeting, and that's the way it should be. So what resources are being used then to get rid of the backlog? It seems to me the resources now are just enough to hold steady.
If I could, what we are doing is calling on the satellite offices along with a number of external hiring processes. The Clerk of the Privy Council put out a call a number of months ago where we have been recruiting. We've worked with the unions to bring back retired compensation advisors, and we're now actively hiring another 300 compensation advisors. They should be onboarded, their compensation staff, they should be onboarded in early January. At that point, we'll have well over 1,500 compensation staff in Miramichi and the satellite offices working on transactions.
And is the number of transactions that can be successfully completed proportional to the number of employees?
We do have certain assumptions around productivity that we've tested with the staff on the ground and with the unions. Obviously, more complex transactions like terminations take more effort. Others, like name changes, less so. So we do have metrics around time to process and also average productivity per trained staff, and we use that to factor into our planning for hiring.
Thank you. I want to look at the impact that these collective agreements have had, and is there a necessity to maybe budget and plan for exceptional periods of time where there may be more transactions than is the norm, and is there a way to staff up during those periods? Is that accounted for in the new system?
Absolutely, and as we look at better modeling our workload in the network, we are taking into account a number of issues related to seasonality. So tax season, summer student hiring. We had assumed for collective bargaining that we could create a dedicated unit of 65 compensation advisors to deal with residual work. That assumption needed to be revisited once we saw the complexity of what we had, and that's been augmented to 200. So going forward, recognizing the Treasury Board continues to negotiate collective agreements, as we look at the service model in Miramichi and the satellite offices, we will build in a component dedicated to collective agreement revision work.
Okay, and I just wanted to touch briefly on training. The compensation advisors, what's the onboarding process? How do they come into the role, and what training are they provided when they first come on board?
We take a number of approaches. So there are formal courses that are available, classroom training that is available to compensation staff. There's also a lot of an on-the-job component as well. And what we have found is that by bringing on more clerical staff as opposed to fully trained compensation advisors who are familiar with all 269 subtypes of transactions, by bringing on clerical staff at lower levels, they're able to take on some of the more straightforward work and free up the compensation advisors for the more complicated transactions. We're finding that this is working well. CRA uses this model. They have their own compensation staff, and we're now moving within the Mirror Machine Network to pilot a pod approach where we will bring together various levels with various skills to be able to focus on specific departments or groups of departments or certain types of transactions so that they develop specialization and familiarity with the collective agreements.
Okay, thank you for that.
Minister, we've come to the end of the hour. However, it's been the custom of this committee to try and get a complete round of questions in. We have one 3-minute intervention left from Mr. Weir. If you beg our indulgence to stay for 3 more minutes.
Absolutely.
Mr. Weir, you're up.
Okay, well, thanks very much. And I guess speaking of timing, I would like to ask about the timeline for fixing Phoenix. The Auditor General suggests that it will take years. Do you find that acceptable?
Well, certainly not acceptable that it would take years. Again, I don't mean to quibble, but the definition of fixing is one that we struggle with a lot. So if by fixing you mean at what point will we have a stable system that pays everybody on time and accurately, it will not take years. If by fixing do we have a state-of-the-art integrated HR to pay process, policy, system, that will take multiple years, yes.
Okay, so in terms of the first objective of having a system that pays people properly and on time, when will the government achieve it?
Well, again, I hesitate because our dates have been wrong in the past, but I'm hopeful that you'll see by the end of 2018.
By the end of 2018? Okay, and you mentioned earlier that you take personal responsibility for Phoenix. If that goal is not achieved by the end of 2018, would you resign as Minister of Public Services and Procurement?
Wow, this is an interesting way to end this discussion, but I would hope that if that goal wasn't achievable, it won't come as a surprise by the end of 2018, so I would be forthright and honest and amend my estimation as it becomes apparent that goal can't be met.
Okay, and you said something about realigning the IBM contract. It seems that IBM keeps getting paid more money to help fix a system that they set up. Do you think that's appropriate? Do you think there's a way of better contracting in the future to avoid these problems?
Well, absolutely, in terms of, as I spoke briefly about, focusing more on outcomes and tasks. But I think we need to be very clear about the scope of the work that IBM was contracted to do. It was not contracted to provide the robust system I'm suggesting it should have been contracted to do, and Les can give us more details. But we are holding IBM to the terms of their contract.
And just in terms of updating the way we work with IBM, earlier this year we did update the contract on the technical side to move to a managed service approach, whereby we actually are giving them certain tasks with expected outcomes to deliver, as opposed to piecemeal as had been the modular approach as had been done in the past. And we are now looking at the functional side, replicating that so that we can give more risk to IBM and for them to help manage the pay system more efficiently.
Thank you.
Very much for your attendance here and your indulgence. You were, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, scheduled only to be here until 12 noon, so we do thank you for extending your timelines. I know you've got an extremely busy schedule. Colleagues, we will suspend for about 2 minutes and we'll reconvene with the rest of the meeting. So, Minister, thank you. We are suspended.
Thank you all very much.
Colleagues, will call the meeting back to order. Since we only have approximately 15 minutes, but a little less than 15 minutes before we have to close this meeting, I'm going to suggest that we will only have time for 2 7-minute interventions. We will have one from the government side and one from the official opposition. And I have Madame Shanahan up first for 7 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you. And I would like to continue in the vein that my colleague, Mr. Ayub, had started with the officials, Mr. Linklater. I see you are there. And it's something that's bugging me. In my riding, I just have a few people that have been involved in Phoenix, mostly on the having to come back from retirement side of things, which they have been happy to do, and I've kind of heard stories anecdotally about what that experience has been like. I just want to assure myself is that do we have confirmation these disturbing stories that we hear about people being out of pocket and the financial hardship that they're experiencing? Do we have confirmation that every employee who was missing pay, is missing pay, has either had a pay advance or has otherwise been made whole? And if so, why do we still hear stories about employees being out of pocket?
Thank you for the question, and I think it's important to underline that deputy ministers and the heads of HR, chief financial officers are well aware that emergency salary advances and priority payments must be made available to staff who come forward with hardship issues. No one should be going without money if they need it. So when we hear of these stories as well, we have to ask ourselves, where is the communication breakdown between employee, manager, and senior management in terms of providing that relief? Rest assured that if a case comes to our attention and it's escalated, we then engage the department directly to ensure that the employee is provided with whatever financial assistance they need as soon as possible.
Yeah, I would ask you actually to be even more proactive in that regard, having had some HR experience myself. Sometimes it's difficult for employees, newer employees that are not so sure of their situation to really, first of all, just to understand their pay system, given that we know how complex it is. And in that regarding managers, it disturbed me as well to hear that at the very onset of the Phoenix system being triggered, that there were managers who did not know that they had to go into the system and actually approve transactions and interact with the system. And that's, I can sympathize. There's a very, behavioral management kind of mechanism. If I get a prompt that I need to do something, I'll go in and do it. But if there's no prompt, I'm going on with my regular day. And how could it be that managers did not know that they had to go in and do these transactions?
Thank you for the question. I think it's very timely in that we've recognized through the integrated team that communications with staff directly, whether they're affected by pay issues or they are managers, that we need to do a better job in terms of equipping everyone with the knowledge that they need to be able to navigate the system. So we are working with the unions on content for mandatory team meetings that will be launched in the coming weeks. OGGO at the Treasury Board has also begun to launch more tailored training for individuals depending on the department they're in, the HR system that they use, and how it interacts with Phoenix. At rollout, training was more generic and not particularly targeted or tailored. So we are looking at a more tailored approach. Coupled with this, we will be, with Treasury Board backing, moving out with mandatory training for managers on Phoenix in the coming weeks.
Again, thank you for that. And again, if I can venture further, if it helps at all, I also come from a financial education background. And in fact, that was a big part of my job when I was in HR, was actually educating people about what their paycheck was about, the pension payments, why they saw deductions at source, of different amounts at different times. And it's actually a huge opportunity to inform people and help them to keep keep track of their own personal situation. That being said, the employer does have that responsibility to make sure that every transaction is properly done and adjustments are done in a clear and transparent manner. So can you please explain to the committee in detail how those adjustments are going to be affected to employee T4s, insurance premiums that may have been over or underpaid, pension payments, especially you know, as pay systems like the people that are being paid are not in a static situation. They are constantly moving and evolving.
In the interest of time, I hope I can do justice to
as much detail as
you
possible.
can provide it
within
in
2 minutes.
writing as
Certainly.
well to the committee. Am I right, Chair?
Certainly.
We'd be happy to follow up in writing, but essentially we are able to run internal reports related to underpayments and overpayments. So that provides us with a bit of an indication as to where there may be problems. As we process transactions as well, overpayments and underpayments may come to our attention, and employees may report them to us through the contact center as well. So when there is a discovery, particularly of an overpayment, we do take action to make the correction and adjust the T4 so that the actual the T4 reflects correct or appropriate earnings for that individual, and that the overpayment is addressed.
Be clear to the recipient. Will they be able to understand that clearly?
Yes, we will ensure, building on our experience with tax season last year. We've already begun working with Treasury Board and CRA to make sure that we've got good public-facing communications around these issues.
Excellent. Do I have any more time?
You've got about 30 seconds.
Oh, well, prompt payment. Who can talk to me about that? How are we doing on Mrs. LeMay?
We have, one of the measures that we have put in place, we have a 14 action plan that we've developed. We're working with the industry, but one that we have in place since June, I believe, is now we actually post payments to contractors more than $100,000. So that $100,000. So it is something that the subs can look at and know that the primes have been paid, so they can actually follow up on. So there is ongoing discussion with the industry on this, and we're looking to do other measures. We have on our website the 14-point plan.
We may need to do more than moral suasion,
Yes.
in other words. Yes, thank you very much.
Colley, 7 minutes, please.
Mr. Parker, just so you stay awake and not be completely ignored, can you update us very quickly on any new satisfaction results that you have for shared services, please?
Sure. Mr. Chair, thank you for the question. All of these improvements that I'm going to talk about are attributable to the dedication and professionalism of our employees. I'm very pleased to say since December 2015, our customer satisfaction index has increased from 2.79 steadily over the last number of months to 3.43 in October, and along the way we've had 3 5 out of 5s in terms of the level of the index from individual departments. This is a really great summary measure, and appreciate it.
About the CSC end of the month, I think we're going to RFP. We saw the PBO reports stating that every single month this program is delayed, it's going to cost taxpayers an extra $250 million. How much altogether by the time we get started is this going to be costing us when you use the PBO's numbers?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. So I'm pleased to talk about the Canadian Surface Combatant. It is the largest, most complex
I know that.
Canadian
Very
history.
specifically the question, the PBO says it's $250 million of taxpayers' dollars going to be wasted every month that we delay starting the project. How long before we start, and how much, according to using the PBO's numbers, is it going to cost for added to the taxpayers, please?
So to answer the question, there's a number of factors that feed into that, including which design is ultimately selected. We still forecast starting steel construction in the early 2020s, so that has not changed. The fact of granting extensions at industry's request, quite frankly, is to make sure that we get good, strong bids for Canada to choose from and best value.
Do you think we'll have a decision or a contract awarded then?
So the bids close on November 30th, end of this week. We expect to finish the evaluation in 2018 and start awarding contracts for design. As you know, under the shipbuilding strategy, it's design then build, for that work to start as soon as possible. We do sense the urgency and share that with industry. We do want to press ahead.
So we're into several billions, unfortunately. Ms. LeMay, Actually, it was July a year and a half ago, we sat in this exact room, and I think I sat in this exact seat when I asked about the T4 issues, when we warned, what are we going to do for T4s? And we're told, well, we're taking a, quote, a whole of government approach to this one. And of course, we knew, or we know it turned into an absolute disaster, 70, 80,000 incorrect T4s. What assurances can we have that we're not going to repeat this? We knew a year and a half ago, we asked it, we were told, whole of government approach will fix it. It was a disaster. What are we doing for this year for the T4s to ensure we don't repeat it?
So we will build on what we've learned last year. The fact that we had a high number of amended T4s doesn't, we're still going to have it. We know that from the overpayments, underpayments, we know that. It's how do we address that? And what we have put in place with CRA is they actually do an automatic swipe without people having to resubmit. So we had, those are the processes we had put in place. We're going to build on those. So I understand that the number is a high number, but I wouldn't judge, we have to bring it down, but how we address those is more important, I think.
Right, and how are you doing that?
Like I said, we've built, with the union, CRA, we developed a process last year where people were able to not have to resubmit, that there was a direct, the amended T4 were automatically reassessed. We're doing the same thing this year. We're going to get the information more out to employees as well.
Thanks. Very quickly, we heard recently there's a training program set out for Phoenix. Big controversy, well, it's not mandatory. Why at this point, after 2 years, is the training for Phoenix not mandatory? We've heard an off-the-cuff comment, well, I don't control the other departments, but we hear so much, it's a whole of government approach. We've heard from the beginning how Treasury Board didn't communicate with PSPC didn't communicate with anyone else. Here we have an opportunity, and it looks like we're dropping it again. Why is the training not mandatory?
Well, I believe the employer actually issued yesterday a note saying that the training is now mandatory.
Okay.
So,
why does it take 2 years to make the training mandatory?
Whole of government approach, we are learning.
Sounds like a whole of government letting you down. Sometimes. How much time, sir?
We're much better than, we're in a better position than we were last year in terms of capacity, right? So
very quickly, we asked a question about the almost like an MP hotline, and Mr. Ware followed up on it. I heard Ms. Paltrow say 2 weeks, but it sounded like we're getting was a different answer for Mr. Ware. And again, this is a nonpartisan issue for all of the MPs.
What
Can we stick to that 2 weeks?
What I understood the minister say is that we would get back to you in 2 weeks as to what the process would be. So we will get back to you.
So we can expect that.
Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful. Thanks very much. I think that if we can get at least that much out of this meeting, it will have been a huge success for our constituents. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. McCauley, and thank you to all of the witnesses. Colleagues, I'm going to excuse the witnesses, but I would ask all of you to please remain at the table. We will not go in camera, but I want to deal with the supplementary estimates B very quickly if we can. So, Madame Lemay, Mr. Parker, Mr. Linklater, Mr. Muldoon, Madame Campbell, Madame Paquette, Mr. Duplaint, thank you so much. Now, colleagues.
No, stay in.
No, thank you. I'll take the script.
Yes.
Colleagues, could I ask you to come back to the table? Mr. McCauley, Mr. Weir. Mr. McCauley, if we could have you back at the table. I'll pound harder the next time. Colleagues, if you recall the last time we dealt with subs B last year, I follow the same process I'm going to recommend to you now, and that is I will ask, do I have the unanimous consent of the committee to call all of the votes of Supplementary Estimates B 2017-2018 together? Yes. Shall, in that event, shall vote 1B under the Canadian Transportation Accident Investigation and Safety Board, vote 1B under Privy Council Office, vote 1B under the Public Service Commission, votes 1B and 5B under Shared Services Canada, and votes 1B, 15B, and 20B under Treasury Board Secretariat carry. Yes. Unanimous? Yes. Shall the chair report to the Supplementary Estimates B 2017? Sorry?
Listen to them only.
Shall the chair report the Supplementary Estimates B 2017-2018 to the House? Yes. Thank you. It shall be done. Is there anything else for the benefit of the committee? Seeing none. Yes, Madame Ratanzi.
Study. Is it going to be here, or is it? Are we going to consolidate the study, or are we going to let public accounts do it? Because the department officials were before public accounts this morning, so I don't know what the streamlining process is. Can we take their witness summary and incorporate it into our report?
We, as a committee, of course, as you know, Madame Ratanzi, we have the ability to be the master of our own agenda. We can determine that. If you wish, I can certainly have a conversation with my counterpart, the Chair of Public Accounts, and report back to the committee, and then we can make a final determination there. I've been led to, Raphael has just informed me the Public Accounts will prepare a report. They're definitely going ahead with that. It would be up to us to determine whether we wish to do so.
Okay, thank you.
But I'll have a conversation with Kevin Sorensen and just report back. All right? Thank you all. We are adjourned.